Welcome to our second lesson in the course Learn Hypnosis from Scratch. Free course here in YouTube about hypnosis. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most important subjects in hypnosis, often overlooked. The topic is how to become a hypnotist. How to become a hypnotist. How to be able to hypnotize anyone, anywhere. And if you don't know me, I'm Alberto Dell'Isola. I'm a psychology professor, hypnosis teacher, and I have one of the biggest hypnosis channels on YouTube with more than 400,000 subscribers, but in Portuguese. Now I started to record these lessons in English. So follow me in my English Instagram, send your questions in your DM. But let's go back to the topic. How do you become a hypnotist? What I'm about to tell you may sound strange, especially if you don't practice anything of hypnosis. But the real thing is, you become a hypnotist long before you learn any hypnosis technique. It's very common for hypnosis students to focus on scripts, routines, inductions. In fact, many hypnotists spend countless hours memorizing different hypnotic inductions. I remember that over the past 10 years of teaching hypnosis in YouTube in Portuguese, I have met many people who learn from my YouTube channels, and they used to copy even my accent in Portuguese. They have modeled me so closely that they even started reproducing the way I used to speak. And I understand that. I understand the concern about what's being said. After all, hypnosis involves using words to influence the person that is joining the experience. So, of course, it's important to know what to say, choose the right words. It's also important to understand the role of the tone of the voice, the pacing that help hypnotic routines to happen to succeed. However, more important than all of that is you must be the hypnotist. But how do you become the hypnotist? And how come being the hypnotist happens before learning the hypnotic inductions, suggestions, and all of those things? Without a doubt, one of my greatest influences in the world of hypnosis is Anthony Jacquin. I still remember the impact he had when he released a book called Reality is Plastic in the late 2000s. By the way, you can easily find it on Amazon in many languages. And the reason the book caused such excitement was that Anthony introduced what he called impromptu hypnosis. The ability to hypnotize anyone, anywhere, no special preparation, relaxation, anything. And at that time, many hypnotists believed that hypnosis required very special conditions, a quiet environment. If we have any sound, would be an Enya song playing softly in the background. And Anthony did exactly the opposite. Around the time the book was released, he published a video called Hypnosis Survival, which you can still find on YouTube. And in that video, he hypnotized people in noisy, chaotic environment, pubs, department stores, and even street fairs. And Anthony emphasized that confidence is one of the fundamental pillars of success in hypnosis. Your attitude, your persona. The confidence of the hypnotist carries far more weight than any script or any hypnotic language pattern. Listen to this. The confidence of the hypnotist carries far more weight than any script, any hypnotic language pattern. The best hypnotists appear completely confident and act with absolutely certainty that they will succeed. They are certain that they will succeed, even when they are beginners. And to illustrate this point, I'd like to tell you a story involving my father, who is, by the way, probably watching this lesson. My father has worked with me for many years, helping organizing hypnosis trainings here in Brazil. In addition to my own courses, we have sponsored many international trainers in Brazil, including Anthony Jacquin, Freddie Jacquin, James Tripp, Melissa Tears, Giancarlo Russo, and many others. And all of these courses included a certificate of participation. And my father always printed those certificates at the same print shop. And the same employee handled them every time. But one day, one special day, that employee asked my father, "Is this hypnosis thing real? Or is just nonsense, charlatanism?" A question that every hypnotist has heard at some point. But my father replied immediately, "Hypnosis is a phenomenon that has been extensively documented by science, and hypnotic phenomena are real." And then the employee became interested and asked, "Do you do hypnosis?" And my father replied, "Of course, I'm a hypnosis instructor." And now here's the interesting part. My father had never, ever hypnotized anyone in his life at that point. Of course, he was not a hypnosis instructor. He had seen me hypnotize many people, but he had never hypnotized anyone himself at that point. He had never studied an induction, he had never memorized a routine, he had never practiced any hypnosis technique. Yet, he confidently replied, "I am a hypnosis instructor." And because he's older, serious, well dressed, the employee believed him. Why would he lie? Then came the next question: "Can you hypnotize me right now?" And my father replied, "Of course I could." And the employee asked again, "Right now?" Listen, my father had never, ever hypnotized anyone. But he decided to move forward. And there was a chair nearby. And he said, of course I can hypnotize you now. And he asked the man to sit down in the chair, at the chair, and close his eyes. Close his eyes. Then he had no idea what to do next. He just said something like that. Close your eyes. Imagine that you are a tree and your body is becoming more and more attached to the chair. Your feet, your feet are roots growing deeper and deeper into the ground. You are becoming more and more stuck, more and more rooted, more and more stuck. And he simply told that story and kept suggesting about being stuck and the roots of the tree. And then the guy simply said, I am stuck at this chair. I can't get up. I'm completely hypnotized. And now here's another important lesson I always teach my students. Hypnotizing is telling a good story. It is engaging someone's imagination with a compelling narrative. My father had the confidence. He had the story he made up. My father didn't even do a countdown from a count from 1 to 5. One getting stuck, two. No, he didn't even do that. He didn't even build the expectation in any formal way, like in a minute, in a second, you'll be stuck. He just kept talking about being stuck and the roots. Yet, the hypnosis worked. Without knowing any routine, without knowing any induction, without knowing any formal technique. Why? Because my father had already assumed the persona of the hypnotist. He wasn't acting like someone who was curious about hypnosis. He wasn't acting like a student. He wasn't one hypnotist. As Anthony Jacquin frames, my father was the hypnotist. He was associated with some of the greatest hypnotists in the world. He was organizing courses. To become a great hypnotist, you must first think of yourself as the hypnotist. That posture carries more authority, more power, more hypnotic patterns than the exact words you use or the right hypnotic talking patterns. And again, of course, in that learning the routines, inductions, it's important. Of course, the thinking about the right words matter. As hypnosis use words, as hypnosis is a way of communicating, of course, the words are important. However, the hypnotist persona comes first. When I first started publishing the videos on YouTube, many students would pause the videos, write down every single word I said. At that time, there wasn't the caption, embedded captions that could be downloaded. So they kept writing every word as if there were some secret magical words capable of making hypnosis work. And of course, as I said, there are language patterns that can facilitate the process. Later on, I can even create a new course after we finish this about Ericksonian hypnosis, language patterns. For example, during the classic hand clasp, the stuck hands routine, it's common to say, try to separate your hands. And the word try implies the possibility of failure. But none of that matters if you are really the hypnotist. And that's something very interesting. In hypnosis, you become the hypnotist long before you perform your first formal routine, first formal hypnotic induction. When people discover that you are a hypnotist or hypnotherapist, they often ask, can you hypnotize me? And when you say yes with confidence, you want to be hypnotized now, the person sees you as the hypnotist. Interesting, there are many professionals who claim to know hypnosis well, they see clients, but they do not feel comfortable performing a simple, spontaneous demonstration of impromptu hypnosis. They look for excuses to avoid it. And this happens because many training programs emphasizes scripts. They emphasize long, progressive relaxation inductions, but they provide very little experience with actual hypnotic phenomena. And that genuinely surprised me. There are hypnotherapists, listen carefully. There are hypnotherapists who have never ever witnessed hypnotic amnesia, hallucination. They never produced um, powerful hypnotic phenomena. I understand that posting entertainment hypnotic videos may not fit every hypnotherapist professional image. By the way, I agree that it can damage a little bit of the image of the hypnotherapist in social media, website. Many people don't understand well what's entertainment in hypnosis. But a true hypnotist should be capable of creating those phenomena. And I can assure you, if you follow this course from beginning to end, you will become the hypnotist and you will also be able to produce all of those phenomena. You become a magician. Throughout history, the power of magicians have been celebrated in stories, songs, legends. Magicians, witches, sorcerers, shamans, gurus have always fascinated people. They seem to challenge ordinary understandings of reality. Their spells, enchantments, were feared and admired at some time. When they demonstrate their abilities publicly, they shook people's assumptions about what was possible. Hypnosis creates that same effect. And to explain why become the hypnotist matters so much, I always tell you a story. The story of the prince and the magician. This story appears near the beginning of the book The Structure of Magic by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And their story begins like this. Once upon a time, there was a young prince who believed in all things but three. He did not believe in princesses, he did not believe in islands, and he did not believe in God. His father, the king, told him that such things did not exist. As there were no princesses or islands in his father's domains, and no sign of God, the prince believed his father. But then one day, the prince ran away from his palace and came to the next land. There, to his astonishment, from every coast he saw islands, and on these islands, strange and troubling creatures, whom he dare not name. As he was searching for a boat, a man in full evening dress approached him along the shore. Are those real islands? Asked the young prince. Of course they are real islands, said the man in evening dress. And those strange and troubling creatures? They are all genuine and authentic princesses. Then God must also exist, cried the prince. I am God, replied the man in evening dress with a bow. And then the young prince returned home as quickly as he could. So you are back, said his father, the king. I have seen islands. I have seen princesses. I have seen God, said the prince reproachfully. The king was unmoved. Neither real islands, nor real princes, nor real princesses, nor a real God exist. But I saw them, said the prince. Tell me how God was dressed. And the prince said, God was in full evening dress. Were the sleeves of his coat rolled back? The prince remembered that they had been. The king smiled. That is the uniform of a magician. You have been deceived. And at this point, the prince returned. The prince returned to the next land and went to the same shore, where once again he came upon the man in full evening dress. My father, the king, has told me who you are, said the prince indignantly. You deceived me last time, but not again. Now I know that those are not real islands and not real princesses, because you are a magician. And the man on the shore smiled. It is you who are deceived, my boy. In your father's kingdom, there are many islands and many princesses. But you are under your father's spell, so you cannot see them. And the prince pensively returned home. When he saw his father, he looked him in the eye. Father, is it true that you are not a real king, but only a magician? The king smiled and rolled back his sleeves. Yes, my son, I'm only a magician. Then the man on the other shore was really God. The man on the other shore was another magician. And the prince said, I must know the truth. The truth beyond magic. There is no truth beyond magic, said the king. And the prince was full of sadness. He said, I will kill myself. And the king by magic caused death to appear. Death stood in the door and beckoned to the prince. The prince shuddered. He remembered the beautiful but unreal islands and the unreal but beautiful princesses. Very well, he said. I can bear it. You see, my son, said the king. You too now begin to be a magician. And now, as I finish this lesson, at this very moment, you too are becoming a magician. You are becoming a hypnotist. I am handing you your magician's robe, your magician's cloak. You must keep them intact. Some people will try to take them away. Some people will try to weaken your authority as a hypnotist. Sometimes those people will even be the people you love most. But a true hypnotist protects that identity. Don't wait to learn everything before practicing. Become the hypnotist and start practicing as soon as we deliver the next lessons. Take care of your magician's robe and see you next lesson. Remember, it is a YouTube video, so click on like, subscribe, and see you next class.